a plumb bob is a device that's used to establish a perfect or true vertical.
Yes.
And the plumb bob, for those who don't know, is basically a weighted object suspended by a string or a cord or anything like that. Well, how it's done is that you suspend it at the end of the string and let the weight swing freely until it comes to a rest. At rest, it would point directly. It would provide a true vertical, the length of the string.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is, if you have a plumb bob and you suspend it and you extend it along the length of the string into the earth, all the way down miles and miles until you hit the core and you stop, and you take another plumb bob some distance away and do the same thing with it, extend it all the way into the earth, the extensions of the two plumb bobs shall meet at a point on the core of the earth somewhere there. They shall converge.
Is that that's if we are now, not to cut you off, but that's if we're assuming the spherical model.
That's if it's a spherical model.
Yes.
So on the spherical model, all plumb bobs, if extended through the earth, shall meet at the core, at the center there.
What will happen if they meet at the core?
If they meet at the core there, they will meet there at an angle. If one is at the equator and one is at, say, at New York.
Yes.
Two plumb bobs suspended there, and they're extended. If some means can be devised to extend it all the way to the center of the earth, we can do this as a thought experiment or a Gedanken experiment, as we say. So we find that the two plumb bobs, if extended through the earth, will meet at the point. Where they meet would be an angle, and that angle is determined by where they are on the surface of the earth, the plumb bobs, where they're suspended. So from that, we can tell that no matter where you put any plumb bob, no two of them shall be parallel. They will always meet at an angle. They will always meet at the center of the earth.
Uh-huh.
In fact, one at the North Pole and one hung on the South Pole would practically give you a straight line if continued all the way.
Yes.
If we look at spherical earth.
Mm-hmm.
So we know now that since the plumb bobs are not parallel, if we have a really large building and we use a plumb bob on one end to get this side plumb, this end of the building plumb, one of the pillars there, one of the main supporting columns, and the other end of the building, hundreds of feet away, use another plumb bob to plumb that end. Since the two plumb bobs are essentially not parallel, then the sides of the building, the ends, would be at an angle. They would not be perfect parallel, meaning that the top of the building now should be larger in cross-sectional area than the bottom of the building. That's if we use two plumb bobs and if we have a spherical earth. But we find that throughout history and even now, we don't have buildings where the tops are larger than the bottom. I mean, we look at all these megalithic structures and castles and cathedrals and Parthenon, all these places where they have upright pillars and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't find that the pillars are at any angle to each other. They're all perfectly parallel.
Yes.
To have
no matter where you are on Earth, all the structures are all parallel to each other, the way they're all built.
Right. Using the same plumb bob.
Yes.
So it means that plumb bobs are not at an angle. Meaning they do not meet at no point.
It makes sense because that's what's going to determine how our buildings are going to look. The structures of them, right?
If you're consistent with the plumb bob, if you're very keen with the plumb bob. Now, one would argue that we're looking at great distances here. That fine, the plumb bob shall not be 100% parallel, but the slight angle that they are to each other would not show up. And I can go with that. But you look at tall buildings like the World Trade Center or other such buildings, and then that would show up there.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever little inconsistency with regards to being parallel would show up on really tall buildings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for really short buildings, like not too high from the earth, they probably wouldn't show up. Because it would be a minor difference. It wouldn't be like, in fact, you wouldn't be able to see it with your naked eye. Right?
Yes.
The fact that the ends are not parallel. But that parallelism, or not being parallel, would show up in really large structures.
Yes.
In really tall structures. Because then you'll see, eventually, if you're consistent with the plumb bob, and you make no allowances for anything, but you work, you put all your faith in the plumb bob, but this thing is true vertical, then if the earth is spherical, the ends of the building would be at an angle.
Uh-huh.
And so we don't have that in reality. We never had it in reality. And that seems to say that the earth is not wrong at all. It seems to say that the gravity of the earth is not concentrated in the center, which would be the reason that all plumb bobs would head and towards the center of the earth.
Yeah.
Because everything is, by gravity, is towards the center of the earth.
Yes. Well, that's the logic that they give us.
Right. So if there's a center of the earth, then the plumb bobs would not be parallel.
Uh-huh.
But the fact that the plumb bobs are parallel, meaning if there's no center.
Mm-hmm.
But this center that we speak of, there's a center in everything, whether you can find it or not.
Yeah.
But the center we speak of, meaning this core of the earth, spherical earth, does not really exist based on the plumb bob thing.
Yes.